Carl Jung, Why Intelligent People Prefer Being Alone. Have you ever noticed that the most thoughtful people in your life are often the ones who disappear for a while? They do not post everything online. They do not fill every moment with noise and company. They go quiet. They retreat. And when they return, there is something different about them. A kind of stillness, a depth, as if they found something in the silence that the rest of the world is too afraid to look for. This is not a coincidence. And it is not loneliness in the way most people understand it. Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in the history of psychology, believed that solitude was not a symptom of social failure. It was a sign of psychological development. He wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that process, the one he called individuation, almost always begins in silence and in being alone. So if you have ever felt more at peace in your own company than in a crowded room, if you have ever needed to withdraw from the world just to hear yourself think, this is for you. Because what many people call antisocial, Carl Jung would call essential. Part 1. The noise that never stops. We live in a world that is terrified of silence. Everywhere you turn, something is demanding your attention. Your phone, the news, other people's opinions, the pressure to be productive, the pressure to be social, the pressure to appear happy and connected at all times. And most people comply. They fill every gap with sound. They scroll when they are bored. They talk when they are uncomfortable. They surround themselves with activity, so they never have to sit with their own thoughts. But here is what Jung understood that most people resist. Beneath all that noise is where your real self lives. The person you were before the world told you who to be. The voice that gets drowned out every time you reach for your phone or agree to plans you did not actually want to make. Jung called the version of yourself that you perform for others the persona, the mask, the social self you construct to be accepted, to fit in, to avoid conflict. And there is nothing wrong with having a persona. It is part of being human. But the danger comes when the mask becomes all you know, when you have been performing for so long that you forget what is underneath. Solitude is how you take the mask off. It is the space where you stop performing and start existing. And for people with deep minds, people who think in layers and feel things fully, this is not optional. It is necessary for survival. Part 2. Depth requires distance. Jung noticed something about highly intelligent and self-aware individuals. They are not antisocial because they dislike people. They are selective because they understand energy. They know, often without being able to explain it, that certain environments cost them something. That shallow conversation, performative socializing, and environments built on noise and distraction drain them in a way that sleep does not fully restore. This is not arrogance. It is sensitivity. And it is something Jung explored deeply through his work on introversion and what he called psychic energy. For some people, energy is replenished through connection. They leave a party feeling more alive than when they arrived. But for others, the people Jung was most interested in, energy is replenished through withdrawal, through reading, through long walks alone, through sitting with a thought until it becomes something clear. These people are not broken. They are built differently. And throughout history, the individuals who changed the world most profoundly were often people who spent enormous amounts of time alone. Darwin walked his thinking path alone every day. Newton worked in isolation for extended periods. Jung himself retreated to his stone tower at Bollingen for weeks at a time, without electricity, without visitors, to think and write and reconnect with himself. He did not do this because he hated people. He did it because he understood that genuine thought requires stillness, that the deepest truths about yourself and about the world cannot be found in the middle of constant social noise. Part 3. What solitude actually does to the mind. Most people assume that being alone means nothing is happening, that solitude is an absence. But Jung saw it as the opposite. He believed that the unconscious mind, the vast hidden dimension of the psyche, where our fears, desires, memories, and patterns live, becomes accessible only when the external world quiets down. Think about it. Have you ever had your best ideas in the shower, or right before sleep, or on a long walk with no destination? This is not random. These are the moments when your conscious, performance-focused mind relaxes its grip, and the deeper part of you gets to speak. Jung called this process active imagination, the practice of the sitting quietly and allowing the unconscious to surface. And what comes up is often uncomfortable. Unresolved feelings, patterns you have been avoiding. Shadow material, as he called it, the parts of yourself that you have rejected or suppressed because you were told they were not acceptable. But here is the profound thing. When you face the shadow in solitude, when you allow yourself to sit with those uncomfortable truths, integration begins. The fragmented parts of your personality start to come together. You become, as Jung described it, more whole. This is why people with deep inner lives seek solitude instinctively, not because they are running away from something, but because they are running toward something, toward themselves, toward clarity, toward the version of their life that actually makes sense instead of the one they have been performing. Part 4. The difference between loneliness and solitude. It is important to make a distinction here, because Jung made it too. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted isolation. It is the feeling of being disconnected from others when you deeply want connection. It is a wound. Solitude is chosen. It is the deliberate act of stepping back from the external world in order to go deeper into the internal one. It is a practice. And here is something most people never consider. You can be surrounded by other people and feel profoundly lonely. You can be completely alone and feel completely at peace. The difference is not how many people are around you. The difference is whether you are in relationship with yourself. People who seek solitude and find meaning in it are almost always people who have developed what Jung called a rich inner life. They have an active imagination. They are curious about their own thoughts and motivations. They can sit with uncertainty without needing to immediately resolve it. They find the contents of their own mind genuinely interesting. And this, Jung argued, is the foundation of psychological maturity. Not the ability to be the most social person in the room, but the ability to be alone without suffering from it. Those who cannot bear to be alone, who fill every silence with noise and every empty moment with distraction, are often running from something, from feelings they have not processed, from questions they are afraid to ask, from a self they do not know how to be with. Jung would say that the work of becoming who you are cannot be done in a crowd. It can only be done in the quiet. Part 5. Why the world misunderstands quiet people. Here is a cruel irony. The qualities that make someone suited for depth and solitude are often the same qualities that get misread by the world around them. Quiet is mistaken for coldness. Thoughtfulness is mistaken for distance. Selectivity about company is mistaken for arrogance. The need to withdraw and recharge is mistaken for antisocial behavior or depression. And so people who have deep minds and rich inner worlds are constantly being told that something is wrong with them, that they should talk more, open up more, be more available, be more present, be more normal. But Jung pushed back against this idea with everything he had. He believed that conformity, the pressure to be like everyone else, and want what everyone else wants, and socialize the way everyone else socializes, was one of the great enemies of psychological health. He wrote that the most dangerous thing of all is to be just like everybody else, because that means you have surrendered the most important thing you possess, your individuality, your authentic self, the unique configuration of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that make you irreplaceable. The quiet person in the corner of the room, who seems like they are not engaged, is often the one who is most deeply engaged, just internally. They are observing, they are processing, they are connecting dots that others are not even looking at. They are having conversations with themselves that most people never get to have. And when they do speak, when they finally offer something from that depth, it tends to land differently than the constant chatter of people who speak before they think, because it comes from somewhere real. Part 6. Solitude and the Shadow. Jung is perhaps best known for his concept of the shadow, the unconscious part of the personality that contains everything we have been taught to hide. Our anger, our grief, our envy, our fear, our unconventional desires, our unacceptable truths. Most people spend their entire lives running from the shadow. They project it onto others. They see their own suppressed anger in the people around them and call those people aggressive. They see their own suppressed ambition and call others greedy. They keep the shadow behind a social performance so polished that even they forget what they are hiding. But the shadow does not disappear because you ignore it. It grows in the dark. It shapes your behavior in ways you are not conscious of. It drives your worst decisions and your most self-destructive patterns. And here is the thing about solitude. It is where the shadow comes out. When you are alone, truly alone and quiet, the things you normally distract yourself from begin to surface. The feelings you have been too busy to feel, the fears you have been performing your way around, the grief you have been covering with productivity. This is why some people are genuinely afraid of being alone, not because they find the silence boring, but because they are afraid of what they will find there. But the people who are willing to sit with the shadow, who have the courage to look at what comes up in solitude and work with it honestly, these people develop something rare, a depth of self-knowledge that cannot be faked, a groundedness that others can sense but often cannot name, an authenticity that does not require external validation because it is built from the inside out. Jung believed this was the real purpose of solitude, not rest, though it is that too, not productivity, though it enables that, but the deepest work a human being can do, the work of becoming conscious of yourself. Part 7. When solitude becomes a path. There is a moment that many introspective people reach at some point in their lives. Sometimes it comes after a relationship ends. Sometimes after a period of burnout. Sometimes after a quiet afternoon when the world falls away and something essential becomes clear. The moment when you realize that the version of yourself you have been showing the world is not quite right, that the life you are living does not quite fit, that somewhere along the way, in the process of pleasing and performing and adapting, you drifted from something real in yourself. Jung would say this is not a crisis. This is an invitation. It is the beginning of what he called the individuation process. The long, often difficult, always worthwhile journey toward becoming who you actually are. Not who your parents hoped you would be. Not who your culture says you should be. Not the version of you that is most convenient for others. But the authentic, integrated, fully realized self that has been waiting in the quiet this whole time. And this journey is almost always walked alone, at least in part. Not because connection is not important. Jung was clear that relationship is essential to growth, but because there are parts of this path that no one else can walk for you. There are truths you have to face without anyone holding your hand. There are depths within yourself that you can only reach in stillness. The people who have done this work are different. You can feel it when you are around them. They do not need to fill silence. They do not need to be agreed with. They do not need you to think well of them every moment. They are comfortable in their own skin, in a way that is rare and quietly powerful. This is not something that is given to you. It is earned in solitude. Closing. The courage to be alone. So the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone to fill a silence, or agreeing to plans you did not want out of fear of being alone, or feeling guilty for needing to withdraw and be with yourself, remember this. The most psychologically developed people in the world have always understood what Carl Jung spent a lifetime trying to articulate, that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of every other relationship in your life, that you cannot give depth to others if you have never gone deep within yourself, that the quality of your solitude determines the quality of your presence when you return to the world. Intelligent people prefer being alone, not because they are better than others, not because they dislike people, but because they have learned, or are still learning, that their most important work happens in the quiet, that the self they are building in those still private hours is the only self worth bringing to the world. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." The question is not whether you enjoy solitude. The question is whether you are willing to do the work that only solitude can do, whether you are willing to sit with yourself, face what comes up, and come out the other side more whole, more honest, more real than you were before. Because that is what intelligent people choose, not isolation, not escape, but the sacred, necessary practice of being alone enough to finally meet themselves. And from that meeting, everything else becomes possible. If this spoke to something in you, write in the comments the one word that describes how you feel when you are finally, truly alone. And keep watching. The next video goes even deeper. You will not want to miss it.